Athlete Interview Series. Our Student Athlete Interview Series consists of interviews with different student athletes at all levels and all sports. I'm Katie, and I'm one of the interns here at Sports Finder this summer. Today, our guest is Olivia Chefchak. She is a rising sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania, and she is a pitcher on the softball team. Hi, Olivia. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Katie?
Good. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can just go ahead and get started. So, can you tell us a little bit about when you started playing softball and what made you start playing softball?
Sure. So actually, I started really late softball. I started when I was about like 10 or 11. And the reason why I started playing is actually kind of fun. The first like half of my life, I was a very like nerdy kid. I loved like staying in, and my parents kind of like, for lack of a better word, forced me into trying out for our local park team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of basically how I got my start, and ever since then I've fallen in love with it.
Awesome. So you started, you said you started late, but you still started at a young age. So do you have any role models, or did you have any role models, or favorite players that you kind of watched or looked up to when you were younger?
Yeah, so I actually really looked up to Amanda Scarborough because she's the same height as me and is very successful, and sorry, and for is kind of short relatively for a pitcher. So just having somebody that looks just like me to look up to as a successful pitcher is something that I really try to keep in the back of my head for as long as possible.
For sure. So when did you know that you wanted to play softball in college?
Actually, like as soon as I started, kind of, because I didn't want to, be bad at it when I started playing in the park. So I started trying to copy what the girls on TV would do. And when I saw the atmosphere and how like hype it was, I knew that I wanted to be in an atmosphere like that.
That's awesome, for sure. So can you explain a little bit about what your recruiting process was like specifically to Penn?
Yeah, so just like how I started softball late, I also started the recruiting process really late. I sent an email to the head coach of Penn softball. I think the spring semester of my junior year, and they invited me to a summer camp. That summer, my summer going into my senior year. And after that, I made the trip out to campus, did the camp, and then shortly into the fall of my senior year in high school, I got an email back saying that they would offer me a spot, and I've loved it ever since.
Awesome. So what made you choose Penn as opposed to other schools that maybe you were thinking about during the recruiting process, or what made you choose Penn compared to those?
So I chose Penn because of the academics mostly. You really just can't turn that away.
Yeah.
Not only that, like they have a very strong athletics community. So having the best of both worlds in one school is something that I really looked forward to having.
For sure. So what did you getting back into school, so what did your summer look like in regards to training before you get back into training with the team?
So this summer, before this season, is definitely a lot heavier than my first summer because I wasn't quite sure what to expect.
Yeah.
After we had our first spring season, I realized how seriously, difficult things were going to be if I didn't keep up with everybody else on the team. So this summer, I really tried to work out as much as possible, start running a little more, pitching more often, just making sure everything almost doubled what I used to do.
For sure. So after having your first year, even though it was all online, what would you say the biggest change was from high school to college, both academically in the classroom and athletically, whether it's in the weight room or on the field?
So academically, I would say that I love the freedom that we have, but also on the other hand, it's a lot more difficult having that freedom academically to do, whatever we want. You're not forced into anything. So So making sure I want to go to class and do all my work is totally up to me. And that's just kind of a hard thing to get used to.
Oh, you're good. I can hear you. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So athletically, I would say that, you know, like I said in the last question, just putting in a lot more work than I did in high school and making sure that I can keep up with all the talent that's our team already.
Yeah, for sure. So how is the change from going from New Orleans to Philadelphia? Like, what would you say the biggest differences are there?
I would definitely say the weather, a lot more harsh of a
Yeah,
winter.
for
I had
sure.
never seen snow before this past spring semester. So that was definitely a big culture shock for me, and I'm glad I was able to experience that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what would you say your greatest accomplishment has been as an athlete overall?
Overall, I would say just having the opportunity to play in college and to be on a team of such like great people on a great campus, can't really beat that.
For sure. And then lastly, to wrap us up, do you have any advice for student athletes that are maybe in the recruiting process, looking to play at the collegiate level? What would you say to them?
I would say from experience, just be patient no matter where you are in the recruiting process,
Yeah,
because it may be the last possible minute that you'll have your, I guess, big break, so to speak. So
yeah.
just be patient, and when the time is right, it'll come true.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining today.
Thanks, Kaylee.
Have a good rest of your day.
You too.